Copy, thanks. So Scott's just going to go have a quick check up on the eastern boundary to see if they possibly have missed these buffalo and snuck off. But the last visual of old Junior was pretty much heading directly towards where we're sitting. Let me just move a little bit so we can still keep an eye on these buffalo. We're right on the edge. Scott lost that Junior probably 100 meters that way. He's just checking. He said there were some more tracks further to the south of us, so he's checking. Maybe Junior fell asleep and got left far behind, which is a possibility, and it does happen to young male lions sometimes. So we're hoping to pick up either the blacks of the ears or just a flick of an ear as a lion is approaching these buffalo. Using our ears, listening for any little alarm call. Even the tiny little bird might give away the presence of a predator. And sometimes when lions hunt buffalo, it can take them quite a while to get into the position for that initial charge. There we go, there's the foremost buffalo. I'm just glassing with my binoculars into this thick bush to see if I can possibly spot anything there. So it's always good to just keep an eye out, even though quite often your open eye is great. Just use your binoculars every now and then to try to pick up the slightest little movement. So we're going to cross across to Scotty. We're going to actually move into the bush now and see if we have a little bit more luck in trying to find them in this area. We're quite confident that they're very close to us here. So we will see you a little later, and hopefully our Nkuhuma curse comes to an end and this hunt pans out.
Welcome back everyone, and I know this is a little bit frustrating. We know the lions are somewhere very close by, but sadly our vehicle has broken a bracket that holds in one of the springs, so it wouldn't be advisable for us to off-road because we don't want to cause any serious damage to the car. It is already fairly serious, so that's why we've come back onto the roads where it's a little bit less stressful for the shock absorbers and springs on the car. And I just heard some birds alarm calling off to our left, so I've decided to stop, try and just make sure that it's not the lion that they've seen. I think Brent in his able vehicle is going to try and snoop around into the block. I'm guessing that these lions are probably sleeping very close to us and also very, very close to these buffalo. Now, if any of you would like to send through questions or comments to us, it's very easy because it's a live safari, and therefore we can answer your questions immediately if you just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@WildEarthTV. Junebug, good to have you with us, and I would like to know whether Junior would make a kill on his own. And yes, he certainly would if the opportunity presented itself to him. For him, he's quite lucky at the moment because he can rely on the lioness within his pride to do a lot of the work, but there's going to come a point, and it's very imminent, when he gets kicked out of this pride of lion by his fathers, and he's going to have to move off and establish a territory of his own. Now, when he gets kicked out, he will be alone. Sadly, he doesn't have any brothers that he can take with him. So in that period, he is going to have to be very resourceful. He'll probably consume 1 or 2 tortoises and strange animals like that that are easy to catch and kill, but not very tasty and nutritious, and they're very small. But it is something that male lions, when they are kicked out, will do. They'll do a lot of scavenging, but they are also capable of hunting, and when hunger overrides their laziness, they will get their act together and make some kills. So it's not unlikely for him to be able to kill on his own, but at the moment I would say it is, because he is in a fortunate position where he can be lazy. Well, I'm very happy we at least got a glimpse of him, indicating to us that the rest of the pride is probably not far away. And I'm also happy that Brent is in this area, because it obviously increases our chances of capturing any action if it does unfold. The lions are basically somewhere in our left, off to the left of us, but it's very thick, and there's a network of small riverbeds making tricky crossings and not easy maneuvering through. We are at least in a good area, and we know the lion must be here somewhere. If we don't have much luck in the next few minutes, we may, or I may at least, move out of this area and leave Brent, who can off-road in his able vehicle, to continue searching around for them. The fact that there are a few buffalo bulls nearby means tracking on foot would be a little bit risky, because buffalo bulls do pose a massive threat to us when we are on foot, especially when they are understandably highly nervous because they've been chased by a lion and know that lions are on their tail. Well, we've just got a funny comment through from X-Ranga, and I think Brent's been unfortunate in his luck with being on vehicles that break. It's not his fault, but now it's my turn to be on a vehicle that's broken. Just had a few Franklin let off a few alarm calls. maybe these lions are on the move, but at this stage of the day it wouldn't surprise me if they've decided to have a rest. Brent, well, you know, it is warming up considerably. You would have noticed I've taken my beanie off, my one jacket. Copy, very good. Brent's also heard the same Franklin alarm call and he's a bit closer to them, so he's going to go and check up on them. Well, if it was easy to find the lions every time, there would be no joy when we do find them, and this is a good example of sometimes having to work a little bit harder to get you good views of these animals, and it, I guess, can make us realize how fortunate we are on some occasions when they're just lying up in open clearings, easy for us to view and find. Anna Marie has just made a comment saying that the buffalo may let us know where the lion are. And like Brent says, well, from the report that I got, the buffalo were looking back in the direction of where at least Junior was coming from. So yes, they certainly will, but not if the lion are sleeping, which I fear may be the case. It's not far at all from where we saw Junior to where Brent had the buffalo. And therefore the fact that nothing has happened in all this time makes me think that these lions have either headed off in another direction or are fast asleep. But certainly they could help in us finding these lions. See if we can get you a visual of these arrow-marked babblers while we wait for the lions to disclose their location. You may have heard a babbling noise as we headed past these bushes on our left. It was a flock of arrow-marked babblers chatting away. All gone now. And just like the lions, it appears that the arrow-marked babblers are also trying to evade us, but they are off to our left. Are there any left in there? You may just see a few blurry brown figures disappearing into the undergrowth. That was the arrow-marked babblers, but they are no longer. so lucky with the visual of the Aramark babblers, but I am told that there is another bird that we were chatting about earlier, the hummingbird, that I definitely need to make an effort to go and see, because Marianne and another one of our viewers have said they are the most breathtaking birds and actually sound like little bees when they hover nearby. Bear was the other viewer, and I'm jealous that you've seen them, but I guess that's the beauty of the planet that we live on. There's wonderful different animals on all the different continents. It's not just here in Africa where you get wonderful animals. And one day maybe I will head off on a hummingbird hunt in the Americas. Just going to go back now to the last place where we did have a visual of Junior, and that way be able to give Brent an exact idea of where he was moving from, and that may help Brent as he maneuvers off-road trying to track down the pride. Our spring, that didn't sound too clever there. All good?
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, happy to hear that you've already got 39 birds on your list, and not only on your list, but you've also got 39 screenshots of them, and what a great way to be able to remember exactly what they are. Let's see if we can get you another one to get you into the 40s. Obviously it's a little bit tricky because I don't know exactly what birds you have on your list already. But we should be able to find you a slightly more rare or less observed bird if we try. Okay, well this is going to be a good it was going to be a good opportunity. The birds and their wings make our life very difficult, and they fly off very often before we can show them to you. That was a common scimitable, which I'm almost certain would have been able to be added to a lot of your lists. It's a bird we don't get to see and show you very often. It looks very similar to the green wood hoopoo. We'll get another shot at it on one of the safaris. Well, as I try and find exactly where we left Junior, we're going to send you into the thick of things with Brent, and hopefully he will be able to track them down for you.
Welcome back, everyone. We're in the thick of things, as Scott says. I heard a batelier give quite a strange call, so we were just making our way. I could see the batelier in the distance, and this is about the area where Junior was last seen. So we are checking very carefully and still listening very carefully, but Jean-Andre spotted something that we thought you might want to have a look at. There we go. Bring it through to the dash. and it is a warthog tusk. So there we go, quite an old one. You can see it's had a lot of sort of sun wear on it. And so this is obviously from a very old possible kill in this area. And quite an interesting thing, you see how nicely it sits there balanced. And that's because you can see this very flat underside here and quite a bit smoother. So basically that's where the lower tusk or tush would have sat, and they would have smoothed that, and this would have helped sharpen that lower tusk. So when a warthog actually defends itself, it's the smaller lower tusk that's sharpened like a razor blade that does a lot of the defending. And as you can see here, that's how much of the tusk would have been out. A bit difficult to see on these older tusks, but on the newer tusks you can see the side that's been out in the air as opposed to the side that's been actually inside. You can actually see how deep the root is. So obviously it has to be quite deep to hold that in when the warthogs fight. So there we go, nice warthog tusk, very old, and you can see all the sun cracks and sun damage. Whoopsie. And that's the side it's been lying like that. This is the side that's been up to the sun, and you can see the cracks and whatnot. And then if you look on the underside, not as cracked and still a bit smoother, or different type of cracks. So it isn't as white, it's a bit darker still. There are the cracks in that, but if you look at the other side that's been out to the sun, it's almost been bleached. So there we go, a nice little warthog tusk. Standing right. Sorry, go again. Copy, thanks. I'm stationed at the moment. Just go again, please. Okay, Scotty, I'm in the block probably 100 meters to the northeast of you, just on the southern side of this drainage. I can hear a battalier giving quite a strange call, probably opposite where you are, and that's where I'm busy slowly trying to make my way to. Okay, copy, thanks. So I think I couldn't get further from those buffalo, further sort of west. Went into a whole bunch of big drainage lines. So I'm going to see if I can get access from this side, possibly somewhere. Okay, so what happened there is Scott, it's just gone to the last position. He saw Junior, and he's, oh, hello, revved his engine. There's a buffalo. The buffalo followed us as we've crossed through the drainage line. They're actually behind us. Let me just turn so I can show you quickly before we continue on. Copy. The buffalo actually followed us across, or a buffalo, because we were sitting with them. So just to let you know what Scotty and I were chatting about, Scotty's just revved his engine down there to the last spot he saw Junior, giving me a good idea. Oh, here they all come. Where I should start going to look again for these lions. So they're the buffalo bulls we were with earlier, and looking less and less likely that the lions are possibly stalking them. They might have attempted them earlier. They're now actually sort of moving towards the drainage line, and they might possibly end up at Twin Dams as it gets a bit warmer later in the morning. Okay, so we're going to continue on, leave those buffalo on their morning meander, and we're going to try and find a way to get into this myriad of little drainage lines and thickets. And I have followed, it was quarantine through here before, So I do have a few little sneaky tricks about where to access. Well, chatting about those strange calls I heard coming from the Basileia, Declan's asking can I tell where the lines are from birds? Well, Declan, with all predators, a lot of animals will alarm call at them, and they do this to notify the other animals or other birds. So even though it's very unlikely a lion's going to catch a bird, they still will alarm at it because it's a predator. It's an instinctual response to any potential danger in that area. Thanks very much for that, Declan. I should have explained it better earlier, but thanks very much for that question. Hopefully those birds pay dividends and we do find the lions thanks to them. I think I've got a sneaky spot where I can get across further to the north here. Out there, Jean-Jacques. Maybe not there. Possibly here. I thought I saw a gap. Well, there we go. Okay, so this is looking a little bit more promising. I have used this little drainage line to come through here before, and I'm hoping that the lions will be around here somewhere. See if we got any tracks here quickly. I'm just going to jump out of the vehicle for a couple of seconds. There's some paths around here. I just want to see if I find any footprints, or hopefully get growled at. So nothing here, so that possibly means those lions might have crossed further to the sort of west, southwest of us. So we're going to continue on. So we're going to stop here and listen for a little bit. Maybe something will give a hint to where these lines could possibly be. But in the meantime, back to the warthog tusk. Rena would like to know, is it naturally grooved? I assume you are referring to these grooves here. This one big groove. That is a natural groove in the tusk. These cracks or whatnot are probably just coming from age and being out in the elements. But this big groove here is a natural groove. This groove, or this flat section here, which is sort of a groove, is a natural groove, but it is caused by the bottom tusks that rub up against, and this actually sharpens those bottom tusks. They're not actually called tusks, they're called tushes, the bottom set of tusks. And those are actually the sort of main defense weapons of a warthog. Not this big, impressive one that you can see sticking out their mouth. It's the small, tiny, sharpened one on the bottom, which is as sharp as a razor blade sometimes. Okay, we're gonna continue on. Can't hear anything yet. Hopefully they're around here somewhere. There's a nice big animal path I know about from tracking leopards here before. And I'm gonna go up to this here. And this actually is my old tracks from when we were following, a long time ago. It was Nkuhuma mating with a female leopard called the Kwatile female. And it always helps to have a little secret knowledge about where we're able to find access through these big blocks. And there's a really nice big animal path here that I'm hoping got them. There we go. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Here are the lions. Look, it took a little bit of a bundu bashing, but we have found them. And I'm quite sure if I'd continued onto that path, I would have found their tracks coming this way. They have used this area before. We're just gonna have to, they're in quite a thick area. I'm gonna go round. I'm just gonna give you a quick view of Junior before I try reposition him. Not the best view, but there he is. And we're just gonna move around to where I can probably see the rest of the pride. I can just see a couple of ears. I can see the rest of the pride behind Junior, so I'm just gonna move around to try find them. So these big game paths in these areas are really important, like where we crossed there now, even though there were no tracks there. It's good to know animal behavior, and we know quite a lot about lions and lion movements, and a lot of that comes from just spending a lot of time out in the bush with these animals. So we're going to move around to the rest of the pride now, and there's a really nice big elephant path. Here we go. And I'm pretty sure they would have utilized this to come from further on the south. You can see the path here off to the right. Quite grassy, so you won't be able to see their tracks on there, but I can just make them out. So they've obviously used this path to come through. So Scott has got one of the animals that helped us find these lions, that sent us into this area. So while we move through this thicket to try and get a nice view of the lions, we're going to cross back to Scotty for a few minutes so he can show you those.
Welcome back, folks. And we're sadly not going to be able to show you the battaliers because not one, not two, but all three of them have just flown out from this marula tree in front of us. So the birds are giving us a little bit of a runaround this morning, but that's not a problem because Brent thankfully has managed to find the lions, and very well done to him for managing to pinpoint where they were. It was extremely thick in there and he did a good job finding them, so well done. And even though they are asleep now, it's great that we found them because it's a good platform to work off for the afternoon drive. So great prospects for the sunset safari because now we can start off with them and know what they're going to get up to in the course of the afternoon. Anyway, we're going to send you back to Brent with the sleepy lion, and we will continue trying to find a feathered friend to add to your bird lists.
Welcome back. We're still trying to get in a position. The lions are around us. They're quite spread out, so I don't want to drive over a kitty cat. So I'm just taking a bit of a wide approach to them. Watch the aerial there. I can't see all of them yet. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Junior was off to the back there. but it is possible they're all lying in the grass around here. Hello ladies, there's one up and moving, or Junior's moving towards the rest of them up ahead to the left there. So I'm trying to have a quick look. It doesn't look like they had any success last night. Even with something small, I can't see any sort of blood residue around their mouths or on their necks. But we'll all have a closer look now. Sorry, they're heating up. I'm just losing a layer or two. It looks like from where we left them on the sunset safari last night after their failed attempt at catching a buffalo, they have covered quite a bit of distance in a straight line, probably about 3 or 4 kilometers. But from where the tracks and Scotty and everyone's been following the tracks this morning, they've probably done closer to 6 because they've zigzagged a lot. Tired kitties. So let's try see where, if all are present and accounted for. We've got 2 lionesses next to us here. I'm just going to move forward a skosh. So we've got 2 here. I can just see some bellies over here. And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All present and accounted for. They have chosen possibly one of the more difficult areas of Djuma to follow up on animals. And we've all lost animals in these blocks before. I mean, I've lost quarantine male leopard numerous times. Karula also lost her in this block, and Mvula. So lucky that we were able to find them again. A bit of educated guessing. It's very much a team game, and working in unison always will produce more sightings than trying to do everything yourself. And not only between Scott and James and myself, but also between us and the commercial game drives that are here. So it does make a big difference. And at the end of the day, we all want to find the best animals for our game drives. Very peaceful moment with the lions. So we've got a question from a name we haven't heard too often before, and only once this morning. And good morning, Declan, who I think might be a new viewer. If you are, Declan, welcome on the live safaris. Declan would like to know, why are they completely ignoring me and not leaping on and trying to eat Chandra and myself at the moment? Well, Declan, these lions, apart from the fact that they've grown up with vehicles, which makes a big difference, a vehicle's only been around for about 100 years, and so they do not have an instinctive response to vehicles. So it's this big thing that doesn't really smell like anything tasty or anything threatening. It smells like petrol and oil, and humans to these days don't actually smell very much like a lion would instinctively know us to smell. We smell of deodorant and shampoo and clothes, washer and all that type of stuff. Also, if we drive respectfully and carefully around the animals, and we don't make them feel threatened, like you don't drive straight at them, you drive oblique angles to them, they will completely ignore you like they're doing at the moment. However, if Jandre were to stand up on the back, or I was to stand up on my seat, we would get a very, very different reaction. Now, the reason for this is lions are one of the dominant predators out in the bush, and the two dominant predators have developed sort of to avoid each other to a degree. So the dominant nocturnal predator are the lions, and they spend most of the daylight hours sleeping. And lions will sleep for about 20 hours a day. The dominant diurnal or daytime predator is us. So that upright bipedal figure of man causes lion distress. If we stood up here, they would probably run away or get aggressive, and that's because there's another dominant predator in their space. And we evolved at about the same time as lions, so we've both been competing for similar resources for about 200,000 years. Obviously, we've evolved a little bit further, and we're not sort of running after lions during the day and chasing them off kills to get meat anymore, but that is what was traditionally done in a lot of areas all over Africa. But during the day, at nighttime, when we want to go home, it's actually an instinctive response that we need to get out of the dark before the lions get out and other predators that can feed off us. So, as you can see, Declan, these guys have take very little notice of the vehicles. But if Jandre and I were to stand up, which we won't, because we're here to observe, and we don't want to irritate them or chase them away, we want to view them in their natural state. So it is great that we are able to do this, and obviously it's taken quite a few years, and I've moved into areas in southern Tanzania where the lions have been hunted extensively, and it's taken me 8 months to get them to not run away from vehicles. But it is possible, as long as you do it carefully and respectfully, you move around the animals, you are able to get sightings like we're having at the moment. Oh, hello. So it looks like she might have been getting a bit hot, and she's going to look for a bit of shade. Well, we can see she's chewing a little bit of grass there. Quite a few of the predators out here will do that when they have some digestive problems, and you do seem to notice them doing it a bit more when they're hungry. So obviously all the worms and parasites in their stomach are screaming for food. And boom. So while we remain with these flat cats for a while, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who has got something quenching its morning thirst.
Welcome back, everyone, and perfect timing, because there's a herd of Inyala just approaching Twin Dams. Oh no, and they got a big fright. Sadly, it's not a predator chasing them. Two young impala have come onto the scene that gave them a bit of a fright, and it's a very nerve-wracking place for a lot of the antelope, because they know they run the risk of being ambushed by predators as they drink. But let's see if the impala are a little bit more bold and decide to take a few sips. There was one or two Inyala that were about to start drinking, but the impala changed their plans, and now it appears like they are going to forego this opportunity. Beautiful to see the two antelope together though. And also nice to see the difference in size between this, a fully grown big male impala, and the other two that came down in front that were slightly smaller. Probably about 2.5 years of age. That impala, it wouldn't have been born last year, but the year before, in November or December. Beautiful. Now, just a quick warning. We have been told that there could be some satellite problems. Apparently some satellite maintenance is going to be done somewhere in Europe, which may have an effect for the last half an hour of broadcast. We've got no control over this and are not sure how it will affect us, but there is a slight chance that the last half an hour of the show may not work out. So we're crossing fingers that that doesn't happen. But in the next few minutes we'll find out. If it does cut out once, it in all likelihood means it will be the end of the broadcast. There's no chance of it coming back. So that's just a prior warning. Let's just take a moment or two here to see if one of these antelope doesn't come down and drink. If not, we will send you back to Brent and the lions. But the fact that these two have hung around makes me feel like they do not want to pass up this opportunity. As we head deeper into the dry season, there will be less and less water points for the animals to drink in, which will certainly make our lives a lot easier in finding them. Waterholes will become more active, those that do still have water in them. And for those of you who are joining us or were with us earlier on, you would have noticed that the hummerkop bird, which you can see in the bottom of your screen, is in all likelihood the same one that we saw earlier. It's no longer hunting, but is on the move. And maybe it'll decide to wade in here and look for some small fish or frogs to feed on. Okay, well, it doesn't look like the impala is going to drink, so we are going to... Oh, why is it looking so intently in that direction? Has it seen something? Probably not. All the other antelope ran off in that direction, so it's probably keeping an eye on them. And with all the other antelope in the area, if there was a predator there, I'm fairly certain they would have already alarm called. Although, you've got to be careful in scenarios like this, because often predators will be very close to their prey without the prey noticing them. So you could drive past a herd of relaxed antelope and assume that there's no predator, and moments later, as you drive off, a leopard or lion could ambush and unleash an attack from the bush nearby. So you do have to be a little bit careful of that, but I don't think that's going to happen now. So we will send you back to Brent and the lion and try and look for something else interesting to show you a bit later.
Welcome back, and from around the teak or elephant lollipops to very sleepy lions. So Scotty's just updated you that unfortunately there might be some maintenance happening on the satellite at 9 o'clock, and our fingers are crossed that it doesn't affect us, but if it does, we'll apologize in advance, but we will keep going till then, and hopefully it has zero effect on what we are up to out here on Djuma Private Game Reserve at the moment. We are with the Nkuhuma Pride, who we've been spending quite a lot of time with recently, and they have not been very successful in their hunting endeavors at the moment, and they have covered quite a lot of ground. So hopefully at this sunset safari they'll get a bit more luck. So just a report on other lions that are about. While we're off air, I just got a call from Johan, who's one of the landowners in Buffalo's Hook, and he's just let me know that the Birmingham boys are actually down in Buffalo's Hook at the moment, all 5 of them. So really nice to know they're not too far away, so hopefully they will come this way at some point. I'm really, really excited to eventually see those guys. This lioness seems a little bit distracted, moving around. And you see she's eating the grass again. As I said, lions do this from time to time when they have digestive problems, but it seems to me that they do it a lot more when they're hungry. And I don't know whether it's possibly that the parasites, the tapeworms and other funny things that live in a lion's stomach are complaining and they're trying to sort of abate them, but I'll have to find out a little bit more about that, see if we can find some information on that. Well, Brenna, thanks for staying with us till we found the Nkuhumas. Rena would like to know whether the buffalo are still close to the lions. They are reasonably close, but they are moving further away from the lions. As I said, the wind is actually blowing from where the lions are towards where the buffalo were, and that could have possibly been why they were a little bit nervous this morning, and they have moved further to the south. Boom. Back to doo-doo. Back to sleep. So as we can see, we've got lots of napping lions around us at the moment. And Bree's got a very interesting question that says she would like to know whether lions would get hungry enough that they would forego all this napping and continuously hunt. Bree, unfortunately, with their metabolisms, they are unable to do that. If they were to continuously hunt, they would get too hot. And especially during the day, it would be very difficult for them to move, and they wouldn't have enough energy if they did actually get to catch something to hunt. So they do have to continue napping, and they will hunt more or attempt more hunts when they are hungry, but generally they do need this nap time, sort of recharge and build that energy. At the moment, I mean, they're hungry. I think we know now they might have caught something small. It doesn't look like it though, but if it was very small, which wouldn't have fed the pride. But they now haven't eaten for 4 days that we know about. They could have caught something very small like a steenbok or a duiker or something, and that wouldn't even show, but it would give them a little bit more energy. Even an animal the size of an impala would provide very, very little food for a pride of this size. So there is a possibility that we've missed them catching something. And I mean, in the greater Kruger area, fascinating enough, lions have been recorded eating, I think it was 37 different species. I think that's, double check that for you now, but it's 37 different species. They've even been recorded eating termites, field mice, franklin, even things like a full lion would kill but not eat, like a civet or a hyena. There have been records of them actually feeding on them when they have been hungry enough. So I think the thing is that if a lion is hungry enough, it will find something to eat, even grasshoppers. But hopefully for them, they're not nearly at that stage yet. They're not that desperate. But hopefully for them, the odds are that, as I said, from this area, from the research I found, it is from about 60 kilometers from us, but probably still relative. We are in the same open system. That lion success rates are between 12 and 17%, so not very high. So we've been with them now for 5 days on and off, and the odds are that they've probably attempted about 7 or 8 hunts so far. So hopefully the next 1 or 2 is going to be successful for them. We have seen them far more hungry than this before, and we have seen them a bit more desperate. But hopefully for the Nkuhuma's sake, and hopefully one of either Scott or myself will be with them when they do make that successful hunt. I'm just going to move the vehicle a little bit to try and give you a different view on these lazy kitties. So we're going to cross across to Scott very, very quickly from the largest carnivore to the smallest.
Well, look at this miniature carnivore wrestling match. Some of them are playing and cuddling one another, but the other two are certainly at it. And look at how cool this is. Dwarf mongoose wrestling. Now it would be interesting to know exactly why they are wrestling with one another. There will be an alpha pair who are dominant within this colony. So who knows, possibly just two youngsters playing around. Oh! But this is a wonderful action to see. The other two in the foreground you can see are far more interested in grooming one another. But it does seem quite playful. The wrestling between these two, it's something that I actually haven't seen before. So we can always be pleasantly surprised out here by all the different animals, even if they are the tiny dwarf mongoose, one of the smallest carnivores. And aren't we lucky to be switching between one of the largest, the lion, to one of the smallest. I'm trying to look through my binoculars to establish whether they're males or females that are fighting. But I can't quite tell. Maybe you, the viewers, have been able to have better visuals, but they do look like they are sub-adults. So a little bit of adolescent boisterousness that we are seeing here. Will they continue, or have they had enough? This is really an awesome sighting, and sometimes you do get lucky, especially on the winter months when it's cold in the morning and they're all enjoying being able to bask in this morning sunshine, warming up after a cold night. And I guess playing around with one another will also help them to warm up. You can see the size comparison between what looks like now the three that are all tussling with one another to some of the bigger adults in the colony. Now they will live in and around the small termite mound. You'll see them disappearing into a few burrows. This will be one of their many little hideouts and homes within their territory. They could have anywhere from 5 to 15 different hideouts like this termite mound, old fallen down trees with holes in them that they will also use. And highly social, you can see a lot of them grooming one another, getting ready for a day of action. Look at them all huddled up there. This is absolutely awesome. Well, so far so good, and it appears the satellite maintenance being done in Europe has not had an effect on our broadcast yet, so it's looking promising to complete the last half an hour of the broadcast, but just to forewarn you, it could give in at any moment. Well, they've had a very late start to the morning, but I don't blame them. It is still quite cool. Oh, we've got some more wrestling going on now. And as VM zooms out, you'll get a great perspective of how small they are and an idea of the surroundings of their little homestead here. So as I mentioned briefly earlier when the two were wrestling, it's interesting that this colony will be run by an alpha pair. Occasionally in family makeups like this, the second dominant pair will also be allowed to reproduce when the going is good, but it typically will only be the alpha pair that are doing the breeding, and the rest of the colony will aid in helping to raise those youngsters. From a safety point of view, from a food point of view, they'll all clan together. And you can certainly see that they are very affectionate with other members of their little colony. And like most animals that do live in these complex social structures, there's a lot of grooming and reaffirming of relationships. So it takes up a large portion of their day, making sure everyone's happy, not just going out and worrying about themselves and feeding themselves. There's all these rituals that have to go on. And our timing has been lucky this morning to see them all huddled up together. Now, even though these adolescents seem to be playing, it's very useful training for them for future potentially serious fights, or more importantly in catching prey. Their agility that they are practicing and honing now will help them to catch some potentially dangerous prey that they will come across: scorpions, little snakes. And I believe a lot of you on Twitter are agreeing that this kind of behavior is very typical of teenagers. Look at how awesome this is. Again, when there's so much action with so many different animals, not an easy job for the cameraman to decide where exactly to film, but I think VM's doing a great job. James would like to know if dwarf mongoose are endangered, and no, not as far as I'm aware. They have got nothing to worry about. And you'll typically find that endangered animals are, especially the large, I guess that's not true, but a lot of the larger animals and larger predators are endangered for various reasons, but thankfully this tiny carnivore is not persecuted by man, and there's more than enough habitat for them to occur both inside and outside of national parks. So they have got healthy populations as far as I'm aware. What I will do is have a quick look in my book to try and get you an idea of the distribution and how far they will stretch through southern Africa. Oh, this is very good. So once they have stopped performing, I will show you their habitat distribution, but they do stretch quite far up into East and Central Africa. We were chatting about their feeding earlier, and Bear would like to know if they will share meals. I guess, like most carnivores, there will be a lot of competition for food once it is on the table. But with larger kills that may be made, I'm fairly certain they will all try and tear off little tidbits. So I don't think it'll be very friendly sharing, but sharing through default. One of them may catch a bigger prey item and therefore allow the rest of the colony to feed on them, even though it may be against that individual's will. Now, you get different colored dwarf mongoose further up into East Africa. I remember them being more yellow in color, whereas here they are very dark in color. And you can see on the top right here, the left-hand picture or individual is more like the ones we see here, but they do come in quite lighter shades. And then if we pan across to the distribution map of Africa, we can see that we are right at the southernmost points of their distribution within South Africa, and they stretch further up into our bordering countries and quite far up, almost into Sudan and Ethiopia. And then the man versus mongoose in the corner, you would have got an idea of how tiny they are. Their bodies are probably only about 20 centimeters long, and their tails will add on probably the same length to that. So tiny little animals, and it says here really up to 600 grams, so half a kilogram, which would be about a pound in weight at the most. Okay, well, I wonder if we should carry on watching them, because I can see they've just started up a little bit more wrestling, and it's something that I haven't seen very often. So no point in rushing off when there's all this action unfolding here. And a report from Brent is that the lions are so flat in the grass that it's actually hard to see them. So I'm fairly certain it'll be this afternoon that will be the time to come in and join us on the next safari if you want to see those lions up and about. And they certainly are good prospects. They're looking hungry, and the more hungry they are, the more inclined they are to get off hunting earlier, and hopefully we'll be able to see them in the daylight hours trying to track down some prey. If it is your first time joining, we've been fairly unlucky when it comes to the Nkuhuma pride. We've yet to see them make a kill, and considering how long we've been out here, it's a little bit overdue. And maybe, just maybe, this afternoon will be the time where we can finally capture them in action. Judy in Canada has noticed a contrast in coloration between the tree that is above these dwarf mongoose relative to most of the other trees in the area, and that's because it's one of the evergreens. It's called a guarri tree, and they are one of the evergreens that will keep its green leaves throughout the course of the winter months. Interestingly, its branches can be used and are used by the local Tsonga or Shangaan people of this area as a toothbrush. dwarf mongoose is not the only mongoose that we get in this area, and Pam would like to know if it is the most prevalent, and it certainly is. There's more dwarf mongoose than banded mongoose, who are also a social mongoose that live in colonies, anywhere from 10 to 20 individuals on average. But we don't see them nearly as often as we see the dwarf mongooses, and we neither see the slender nor the white-tailed mongoose, both solitary mongooses, as much either. There are chances of there being water mongoose in this area as well, but again, we don't see those. And these are therefore the most prevalent of the mongooses in this area. Well, finally it appears that they are heading off to forage for insects, little bits of fruit they will even feed on, but they need to start their day. And while they head off into the unknown, we are going to send you back to Brent so you can have one last look at those sleepy lion, and we will see you all a little bit later.
So, not much has changed here with Nkuhuma Pride. Some of the lionesses moved back towards the rest of the Pride. And it's quite pretty as you just see them lying in this wonderful Thermida grass here. Very important grass. And you can see the one who's on her back. And you can see the grass moving above her in a light breeze. And that is probably the most important grazing grass here, Thermida triandra, or Natal red grass, and a very, very popular with all the grazers. They're lying up right on the edge of a drainage line, but in this sort of transition zone, so where the water seeps from the top of the crests down towards the drainage, and you get these wonderful little open grasslands here. And oh, we've got one standing up. Movement! One of the little sub-adults has stood up. She's probably going to move to where the rest of the pride are and flop down on top of one of them. Or at least nearby. Oh. A hairball. Possibly. Probably. Trying to get rid of possibly a hairball or even some bone maybe that has been in her stomach and it's being rejected. There we go. Woof, woof. Didn't like that, but it looks like she got it out. Still got that funny taste. Probably a few impala and buffalo hairs stuck between the teeth. So there is a little bit of a interesting movement, and we often get asked whether the lions get hairballs, and there was a prime example of that. Oh, we've got movement again. Seems the cloud has come over. Don't think they're going to move too far, just changing sleeping positions. going to join the other lioness who got up a little earlier and moved to behind the bush there. And flop. I do love the way the lions lie down. Sometimes they just sort of, you can even hear that, or the air coming out of their lungs as they sort of just flop quite hard on the ground. Looks like the others might go join there now. It has got a little bit cooler. I still don't think these guys are going to move. I think they're just moving sleeping positions. There we go, boom. There we go. I don't know if you guys could hear that. But the air coming out of her lungs as she flops down. And here's the hairball female, young sub-adult, going to join the adults. So they are definitely still hungry. I don't think they're going to hunt again during the day unless something happens to stumble upon them. But I think on the sunset safari, we might get some movement. There we go. Next one, going to form a lion pile. So back to the quite amusing little scene we saw of that young sub-adult trying to get rid of a hairball or possibly some bone. Joe would like to know, do they stink? They do, Joe. Very much so, because there's quite a lot of rotting meat or semi-digested stuff in there. So it would be, stood on a thorn. Be very, very smelly. Definitely something that would make most humans rich if you had to give that hairball a good smell. Nice fresh one like that. Sun breaking through the clouds again. She's going to a nice shady spot under that quarry bush. I think you might find a sneaky suspicion that later on in the day there might be a few more with her under that bush if she chooses to sleep there. So back to that retching we just saw from that young sub-adult. Wild Dog Pup has commented maybe it was the grass. Wild Dog, that was a different lioness to watch the one we saw eating quite a lot of grass. Since we've been here, we haven't seen that one eat any grass, but maybe it would definitely make her possibly help and aid in that sort of expelling of unwanteds from the belly. We're going to move around a little bit, see if we can see the rest of the pile. And of course, young Junior is on his own, very flat. Doesn't look like much could bother him at the moment. Not even a stampeding herd of wildly beasts. So let's see if we can find a view of the lion pile. So we've got a very unusual question from Gilly in Milwaukee. She was wondering, was that a building I could see in the background? Gilly, I can very safely say that there are no buildings where we are. We're probably in one of the largest areas with no roads on the whole of Djuma. If there was a building, it would be a big surprise to me. And Trying to see they like this way so we can look at their faces. How's that, Sean?
Yeah.
More?
Very good.
Good or more?
Good.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines in a row. It's amazing when you watch an apex predator like that and they look like they're in such deep sleep. But the slightest smell or noise might set them off and switch them from very much flat cat to awake, alert, and into that sort of predator mode. And they look quite cute and cuddly and sort of nothing to be particularly afraid of when they're lying like this. Oh, the other lioness is coming in. I definitely could use a meal. Now we've got a half moon of lions around this acacia. But it is always wonderful, even spending time with sleeping lions. And you can learn and you see different things like that sort of up-chuck reflex, trying to get rid of, we couldn't really see what it was, either a hairball or bone or even possibly something that was disagreeing with her, and that we don't see that type of behavior too often. So the more time you spend with these animals, the more you learn about them. And also one of the nice things about spending so much time with a particular pride, you do get to learn their habits a little bit, what areas they like to walk through. So if you're in an area and you've got tracks and you're trying to second guess where they're going, based on their behavior the last time they were in the area, you can actually make an educated guess. And obviously, often you're completely wrong, but that's one of the fun things about tracking and looking for animals in the bush. You are testing your knowledge every time, even when you're tracking. And if I was a lion, where would I go? Or if I was a leopard, would I go down this elephant path or that elephant path? And so a lot of tracking is not only physically seeing the tracks, it's learning how to think like an animal and try to predict their movements, which for me is absolutely fascinating. At the moment, I can pretty much spot on predict that the lions are going to sleep. For the next while, at least. For the next 5 minutes at least, they're definitely going to be sleeping. And hopefully they prove me wrong. Looks like you should actually sort of go join them, Chandra. So back to the coughing cat, that sub-adult lioness. Georgianne in Illinois said she noticed a scar on her back and on her left shoulder. Georgianne, I wouldn't go as far as say the scar, it just looks like a little scratch. And it probably, I've noticed it over the last few days, and it's probably from when they were last feeding. But as we come to the close of this sunrise safari, it has been fantastic. And at least the lions have been a little bit more cooperative than that Shelley's Franklin this morning, who all we wanted him to do was give us a call after calling so beautifully as we tried to find him. But it's been wonderful having you guys on the Sunrise Safari. For all our regular viewers, always great to have you on the back. Thanks for the questions. And for our new viewers who've started sending through questions, really, really wonderful to have you. Thanks very much for joining us, and you should definitely join us for the Sunset Safari as well in a few hours. I'm sure Scotty or myself will be coming and following up on these lions, because I definitely think they're going to start moving again a little later. So Scotty's gone to do some TLC on the Wendell, or the Wendy, which is the vehicle he's been driving. So I'm going to say goodbye for Scott and Wim, or aka the Wildebeest, who are trying to get Wendy all sorted for the Sunset Safari. And from Gendre and myself, a big thank you again, and thanks to everyone in FC. And thanks to the satellite maintenance man who decided to let us carry on for an extra half an hour. For the last few seconds, we're going to bid you adieu and let you have a look at some lazy lions.